Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. As you can tell, I have really enjoyed doing the live videos that I have been able to do this week since I am on vacation from work, trying to squeeze in all the lives that I can to give the people that like to watch live videos a chance to watch live videos and chime in and comment. Hopefully, some people will join us here in a few minutes. But today, here on the channel, I want to talk some college football since we're getting ready for week number 3 of the college football season. But before I talk about that, before I forget, let me say that if all goes as planned, I'll be at SWA 244 Livestock Road, East Denali, Georgia, Saturday night, and then I'll be on Cherry Street Sunday afternoon for Georgia Outlaw Wrestling. Same building that has SCA every Friday night will have Georgia Outlaw Wrestling Sunday afternoon. Hello, Marcus. Glad to have you here. So if all goes planned, I have SWA Saturday night and Georgia Outlaw Wrestling Sunday afternoon. SWA bell time is 7 o'clock. Georgia Outlaw Wrestling bell time is 4:30 Sunday afternoon. But as I said a moment ago, we're preparing for week number 3 of the college football season, and this is probably, just looking at the actual schedule of games, the weakest Saturday we'll have all year long as far as games that look exciting, games that look intriguing, games that look like they're worth watching. But you know how college football is. You look at the schedule of games and you scratch your head and you're like, man, this schedule of games sucks. There ain't no good games this weekend. And then there'll be 4 or 5 games that didn't look like they were going to be worth a darn on paper that end up being pretty good games. But it all starts tomorrow night, 7:30, ESPN, Thursday Night Football. We have Arizona State and Texas State. And me personally, I miss the days of good, competitive Thursday night college football. I don't know if we'll ever get there again because of the NFL carrying Thursday night games now, and college football is never going to compete with the NFL. It's just not going to happen. So you don't want to go out there and have number 1 versus number 2 on a Thursday night, and the NFL still has 3 times as many viewers, because then you make your product look bad. So you just put on 2 average, decent, bad teams, and if nobody watches, it doesn't matter. But I can recall back in the day, man, the Thursday night game in college football a lot of times was the best game of the weekend. Not anymore, but back in those days when the NFL played on Thursday nights, the game came on the NFL Network, and it was always a really good team against a really bad team. I see I've got a few folks in here watching. So glad you're here. Feel free to comment as we go, and while you're here, go to that thumbs up, give the video a thumbs up, like the video, and as soon as we're done, share the video on all social media platforms. I would greatly appreciate it. But back in the NFL Network days, if the NFL was on and you had the NFL Network, it was always a really good team against a really bad team. So nobody watched. But now the NFL game tonight or tomorrow night and the one we had last Thursday are competitive games, generally with good teams. So there's no point in putting a good college game on because nobody's going to watch it. But 7:30, Arizona State and Texas State, that's the game I'll be watching. And then also at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, we have UNLV and Kansas. Kansas, of course, trying to come back from that upset loss last week to Illinois. A lot of folks had Kansas picked to win the Big 12 this year. Of course, they still can because Illinois was a non-conference game, but nobody thought they would lose to Illinois. And then, coming up Friday night, we have Arizona and Kansas State on Fox. And that'll actually be a really, really, really good game with two evenly matched teams. Arizona has a heck of an offense. And then starting on Saturday, this ain't one of those weeks where, the games are noon, 3:30, 7, 7:30, and 8. There's some oddball times for some games this Saturday. But to me, Saturday, all of the most intriguing games that look like they'd be the best on paper are noon. After the noon game Saturday, to me, there ain't not one other game on here that I look at and say, man, that's going to be a good competitive game. I'm sure they will be, but on paper, they don't look that way. But noon on Fox, we have Alabama and Wisconsin. And I heard somebody complaining the other day, talking about their team playing at noon. And I forget what game it was, but they were complaining about their team playing at noon and how, man, there's just no good games at noon. We look bad playing at noon. People have got to stop living in the 90s. That's not true anymore. It used to be that way. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, if you played at noon, either you sucked or the team you played sucked. So you knew nobody's going to watch the game. But now that's not true, because now that Fox has the big noon kickoff, Fox puts their most competitive, most intriguing game on at noon. Hence this Saturday, Alabama and Wisconsin. So now you have ABC, since they're the competition for Fox, trying to put their best game on at noon to compete with the Fox big noon kickoff. So if your team plays at noon on ABC or ESPN, it's not necessarily a bad thing anymore. But noon on ABC, we have LSU and South Carolina. I think that's going to be a really, really, really good game, because South Carolina's defense looks really, really good so far. That should be a good competitive game. Also at noon on the Big Ten Network, we have Arkansas State and Michigan. And Michigan will win that game, but Michigan looks like they have no hope at quarterback. One of their quarterbacks sucks, and the other one sucks more. So they look like they have no chance at quarterback. They'll beat Arkansas State, but as the year progresses, I expect Michigan to get 3 or 4 losses if they don't hurry up and find a quarterback that can at least halfway decently throw the ball. And then we have Central Michigan at Illinois on Peacock. Then we have Oklahoma State and Tulsa on ESPN. 2, Memphis and Florida State on ESPN, and Florida State better hope they beat Memphis, because if they don't, I know this is a non-conference game, but they'll be 0-2 in the ACC, 0-3 overall, and they've still got to play Miami. They've still got to play Clemson. They've still got to play Florida. So if Florida State loses to Memphis, their season could go downhill in a hurry. But they've got so many issues, you don't know what to fix first. Louisiana Tech and NC State is a noon game on the ACC network. And then we have Cincinnati and Miami of Ohio on ESPN. North Texas and Texas Tech on Fox Sports 1. 12:45 we have Boston College and Missouri. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to that game, because Missouri's supposed to be really good this year. They're in the top 10, but so far through 2 games, they have played nobody with a pulse. And Boston College looks really good against Florida State, and of course they played nobody last Saturday, so you really ain't sure how good they are. This will be the first true test for both teams. Should be a good game. Hey, Straight Up Wrestling Show. Glad to have you guys here. Yeah, I just talked about Florida State. They are in trouble. And everybody's going to blame all their problems and all their issues on DJ. And don't get me wrong, DJ hasn't looked great. But as I said after their game against Georgia Tech, DJ's not their main problem. DJ's just there. He's not going to lose you any games, but he's not going to win you any games. I think DJ's problem is DJ just doesn't have the heart and the passion to go out there and put his body on the line. He has all the talent in the world. If you were going to make this day and time with all the AI stuff going on, if you were going to make an AI quarterback, you would make DJ. He's tall, he's got a strong arm, he's big, he can run. He has all the tools to be a quarterback, and he gets on the field and he sucks. And I know all the Florida State fans blame him for their issues, but the Georgia Tech game, Florida State was behind, and DJ drove Florida State right down the field and tied the game. But nobody talks about that. They act like DJ don't do anything right, and that's not true. But Florida State's defense was so bad, Georgia Tech came right back down the field and kicked the field goal. But as long as Florida State or anybody DJ plays for can run the ball and run the ball successfully and play good defense and only throw the ball when they need to, DJ's fine. But if his team can't play defense and they can't run the ball and DJ has to throw the ball 45 times a game to win, you can forget it. The Florida State's offensive line sucks, so they can't run the ball. Their defensive line sucks, so they can't stop anybody, but they're going to blame all their issues on DJ. And if they lose Saturday, you might see them make a quarterback change. I very seriously doubt it because their backup was there last year, and to me, if they had any confidence at all in their backup, they wouldn't have gone out and paid DJ $1.5 million to come. If you think the guy you have is so good, why would you bring in DJ? Unless you're going to skip the backup and go to third string guy, who is their quarterback of the future. I'm just not sure he's ready, but we'll find out what happens if they lose to Memphis on Saturday. If they lose that game, their season is toast. 1 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, we have UMass and Buffalo. 3:30 on Fox, we have one of DJ's former teams, Oregon State, taking on Oregon. And then we have Ball State and Miami on the ACC network. Tulane and Oklahoma on ESPN. Notre Dame and Purdue on CBS. Texas A&M and Florida on ABC. That should be a competitive game between both teams that are just average. And it's hard to say which one is better because Florida's played one good team and got killed, and they played one sorry team and they destroyed them. Texas A&M played one good team and got beat, and played one sorry team and they destroyed them. So we don't know how good either team is. I think they're two evenly matched teams. That should be a good game between two average football teams. Nevada and Minnesota on the Big Ten Network. Another game between two rivals like Oregon State. We have Washington State and Washington on Peacock. Two more teams that were rivals back in the Big East days, West Virginia and Pittsburgh on ESPN2. Then at 4 o'clock on Fox Sports 1, we have Troy and Iowa. 4 o'clock on ESPNU, we have Appalachian State and East Carolina. 4:15 on the SEC network, UAB and Arkansas. 4:30 on the CBS Sports Network, we have Utah and Utah State. 6:30 on the CW, we have Ole Miss and Wake Forest. Ole Miss is another one of those teams like Missouri that's supposed to be really good this year, but so far they've played absolutely nobody that can move the ball at all. So they've looked dominant on both sides of the ball, but it's easy to look dominant when you have played two pitiful teams, and I think they'll still beat Wake Forest pretty easily. This is not the Wake Forest team from 4 or 5 years ago when Dave Clawson first took over. This Wake Forest team is, I think Dave Clawson's done about as good as he can do at Wake Forest. He had a couple of 8-9 win seasons. I think those days are over. I think now they're going to consistently be a 5-7, 6-6, maybe 7-5 football team. 7 o'clock on ESPN, we have UTSA and Texas, Kennesaw State, and San Jose State on True TV. Then at 7:30 on ABC, we have Georgia and Kentucky. And this game shouldn't be within 28 points because Kentucky can't run the ball, they can't throw the ball, and their defense sucks. So they should lose to Georgia by at least 28 points. This game shouldn't be close. And honestly, really, truly, I'm not even sure why this game is on prime time because it should not be close. The 7:30 ABC game is supposed to be the prime time game, which it is, but it's supposed to be a game that may be a blowout, but you think going into it that it's going to be a good game and it ends up being a blowout. This game, I don't think anybody breathing thinks it's going to be close. So I'm not sure why this game is even a primetime game. And I said the other day that Kentucky is the worst team in the SEC, and they are. They are absolutely abysmal. They're pitiful. They suck. They're awful. And if you watched any of their game against South Carolina, their offensive line is atrocious. And Mark Stoops is known for having a good offensive line. I'm not sure what happened, but their offensive line this year is absolutely horrible. They couldn't block melted grease. I mean, it is terrible. Then we have Northern Iowa and Nebraska on the Big Ten Network. New Mexico and Auburn on ESPN2. Indiana and UCLA on NBC. Air Force and Baylor on Fox Sports 1. Colorado and Colorado State on CBS. Everybody knows by now how I feel about Deion Sanders. He's a clown. He's a freak show. He's all about Deion Sanders. He's always been all about Deion Sanders. He won't let anybody refer to him as Deion. He has to be called Prime because he's all about himself. But if you have not heard, in their game, either last week or it might have been the opening game of the season, he told the press box that if Colorado scores, don't play their fight song, play his rap song instead. So Deion's ego is so big, he thinks his rap song is more important than his own team's fight song. That tells you how much Deion loves himself. Some Deion, and if Colorado sucks as bad as I think they're going to suck this year, he may get fired because they're an absolute clown show. And if any other team in America decides to hire him, they deserve to go right in the toilet. Colorado has all kind of talent, but Deion Sanders is more worried about the media and what the media says than he is about coaching football. New Mexico and Auburn on ESPN2. And then we have Eastern Illinois and Northwestern on the Big Ten Network. Kent State and Tennessee, 7:45 on the SEC Network. 8 o'clock on the ACC Network is two teams that used to play every year when both teams were in the ACC, but now one of them is no longer in the ACC. We have the Maryland Terrapins and the Virginia Cavaliers. Then at 9 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network, we have BYU and Wyoming. 10:30 on ESPN, we have San Diego State and California. California, of course, coming off that win against Auburn last week, which some people called an upset. And I mentioned it earlier in the week that I didn't see the point spread going into the game, so it may have been an upset as far as Auburn might have been the favored team, but to me, both teams suck. And when two teams that suck play each other, I don't really know how you call it an upset. Somebody has to win. Oh, is that what it was? It was his son's rap song. All I know is when you think a rap song is more important than your own team's fight song, you've got issues. But if Shadir or Shador, or however you want to say his name, would ignore his daddy, he might be a good football player. But if he ain't careful, he's going to have the same problem all the ball kids had in the NBA. They listened to their daddy, and all three of them went in the toilet. And we're going to see the same thing for Shadir Sanders because his daddy is an absolute buffoon. If he didn't play in Colorado, he might end up being a really good player. I know he's putting up good stats now, but his daddy is going to ruin him. But Deion Sanders, if you're Colorado, you've got to hire him because they sucked. They still suck, but at least now Deion gets people to come to the games. But after a while, that's not going to work. It worked at first because it was something new. It was refreshing, and they were tired of being one of the worst teams in football. So it was, hey, at least now we've got somebody that's worth coming to watch. But now it's getting worse and worse and worse. And you hear it all the time about NFL teams wanting Deion, and I'm like, why? He has done absolutely nothing and won nothing. What has he done on his resume that makes you look and say, you know what? I think I want that guy. He hasn't accomplished anything. He's turned Colorado into a clown show. Why would anybody want him unless maybe you're the Panthers, because the Panthers are so bad and they're going to keep sucking. But at least if you hire Deion, you're going to have 40,000 people come to the games just to see what Deion says and does. But you're still going to lose, but that's better than getting 10,000 people to come to the game to see you lose. Last game, New Mexico State and Fresno State on True TV. And it still sounds funny talking about True TV carrying games. But they carried 2 last week, and they're carrying 2 this week. So I guess they're slowly turning into a entertainment / sports channel. They used to didn't carry any sports at all, and then they started carrying the NCAA basketball tournament the opening couple of weekends, and that's it, a few years back, and now they're carrying college football, so they may start carrying more sports down the road. I'm not really sure. But I think I said a while ago that UNLV and Kansas is tomorrow night. It's not. It's Friday night. Tomorrow night is just Arizona State, Texas State on ESPN, and then Friday night is UNLV and Kansas on ESPN, and Arizona and Kansas State on Fox. Any thoughts on any of these games? Please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I've been skipping out on the dad jokes on the live videos, but today I'm going to do one. This is for all you school folks out there, since school is back in session now. Geology rocks, but geography is where it's at. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.